Thank you, Brother Roy. Again, it's a pleasure to have everyone here this morning on this wonderful day. The weather's changing. These days are dry and crisp and wonderful, especially in the afternoons. It's some very good days that we're having these days. I want to talk this morning about the uniqueness of Christianity. You see, if you take a person that doesn't believe in the Bible, it's very difficult to try to convince them with the Bible that God exists, or that God is true, or that the Bible itself is true, because the Bible was inspired and essentially written by God. So to try to use that as evidence to prove Him, it really doesn't work. If they don't believe in God, then they're not going to believe in the Bible either. In our world today, we are what's known as pluralistic. There are many religions, and in this country, in the last 20 years alone, the different religions have absolutely been on the increase. Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, notably. These religions have really increased. You know, it's not really that people are abandoning Christianity so much as they're just looking for answers in different places. And I would be the first to say that a lot of Christians have not done their job in being evangelistic. They've not done their job in being a good influence. And unfortunately, some of the people that call themselves Christians are exactly the type of people that provide the type of influences that make people have no respect for Christianity at all. And that is a shame. The singer for the band U2 said several years ago, he said, "It's not Christianity I have a problem with, it's Christians." The church is a perfect institution. Christianity is a perfect way of being. But Christians are highly imperfect. What I want to talk about this morning is the uniqueness of Christianity. There are people today, I want to cite an example. A few years ago, there was an Oprah Winfrey show in which Oprah, before she got into her more religious mode that she's in now, she basically had a show where she said, you know, there's a lot of ways to get to God. There's not just one way, that this whole business of Christianity just being one way. That there's a lot of ways to get to God. There's a lot of different religions, and they're all legitimate. And there's a lady in the audience that stood up and said, very correctly said, Jesus is the way. John 14:6. Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Oprah's response was, "Oh, now come on." You know, and naturally the audience is going to, follow along. "Oh, now come on. Do you mean to tell me that there's just one way?" I don't know why it is in our culture today, but we just can't seem to accept we don't like to accept limitations like that. We don't like to accept that there is just one way, but Christianity is what we refer to as, we are exclusivistic. We claim Jesus as the one way. In fact, most every religion claims that it is the one way. There are some that acknowledge other religions, but usually it's people. We have a lot of people right here in this area that would be perfectly comfortable with the statement that there's a lot of ways to get to God, that we all worship the same God no matter how you do it, just as long as you do it. I'm going to argue in a general sense this morning and offer some reasons why I believe Christianity is completely unique. And that because of this uniqueness, it is what distinguishes Christianity as true. And I'm not going to give technical proofs. I'm not going to give deep academic proofs. I'm just going to appeal to some basic things. As we discussed in class this morning, religion, the concept of God is universal in the mind of man. We've always had some concept of God. Probably the earliest ways that God was thought about back thousands of years ago was the sun. the sun rises every day. It's up there. It's powerful. It gives off heat. It seems to cause life. And so the earliest worship and the deifying, I guess, was that the sun was God. The sun was the source. And we still have sun worshipers. There were others who thought that nature was the source. That because nature, trees, plants, that they grow and reproduce, that was the source of all things. The meaning, the source of power. And really there's a lot of definitions of religion. There's a lot of definitions of God. Other religions such as Hinduism or Taoism, they don't really take God to be a personal being at all, but rather a force. That God is just an impersonal force. There's even some variations on theism, for example, called deism, that says that God just wound up this world and set it in motion and went away, and that He's really not personal. He's really not here. It's just that the earth is just it's like a little toy car that you wind it up and it goes, and once it gets to the end, that's it. And that whatever God did after that, or He went off to create other worlds or what, we don't know. There are, of course, people that are evolutionists that believe that this whole thing that surrounds us here, the world, the earth and the universe, was something that was compressed into something a billion times smaller than the head of a pin and just exploded in what they refer to as the Big Bang, and created everything, and that there was this planet called Earth, and it had a primordial soup around it with lava and rocks and heat and crude elements, and that somehow on the side of the ocean or someplace there was a particular arrangement of proteins and enzymes and oxygen and heat and elements that somehow, in some way, through a process, came together in a primordial soup. And from what was previously without life, as a unique combination of those things, came together, and lo and behold, life. The single-cell organism that first climbed out of that primordial soup onto dry land or whatever, and then decided without a brain to have a brain, and to develop and grow over hundreds of millions of years, even 60 billion years, to become a human being. And that really God then would be the Big Bang. That's what macroevolutionists believe. We have a lot of different sources of what God is, where we came from, and what does it all mean. Well, there are some aspects to Christianity that are completely unique. As I mentioned this morning, the notion of immaculate conception is not unique. Jesus Christ was conceived divinely. His mother was a virgin, and He was divinely conceived. That has precedent in other religions. It's not unique. The whole idea of a young Jesus Christ being exceptionally precocious and being very smart, performing miracles and things, that's not unique either. It has parallels in other religions. So what are some of the things that are unique about Christianity? I'm ultimately going to say that there is no other religion in which there is a personal relationship with God. Romans 8:15, He cares about what happens to us. He is concerned about our well-being. He cares about us. There's no other religious system in which the deity or the God is personally concerned. Luke 12:7, our hairs are numbered. He knows the number of hairs on our head. There's no other religion of all religions in which the mighty deity on the throne with the thunder and the clouds and the claps of thunder and everything coming down has a personal knowledge of his people. That's unique to Christianity. Now, I'm going to include Judaism in that God knows, but the God of the Bible is the God that sent Jesus Christ, and we're Christians. Jews don't believe in Jesus Christ. So they share some of those attributes of God, but they don't share Jesus Christ. And to a certain extent, Islam, certain segments of Islam do acknowledge that God knows or is all-knowing, but they do not acknowledge a personal aspect of God, and they don't acknowledge Jesus Christ. You see, that's the second part. Number one, he came down in the flesh to be just like us. Now, in the Hindu religion, there are other deities or personalities of the Godhead or the aspects of God, such as Krishna, that do come down and live lives as personalities of the God, but they do divine things. They don't do human things in Hinduism. And they do not sacrifice for the sins of humanity. The most unique thing about Christianity is that the deity itself, himself, would come down and make an atonement for the moral ills of humanity. This all-powerful deity that is worshipped and revered and lauded makes it so that he himself comes down in the form of Jesus Christ to atone, to pay the price, to forgive, to put away all the sins of humanity. What a unique aspect of God. Not only does he care about us, not only do he has a personal knowledge of us, but he actually himself atoned for us. He came down to get rid of our moral ills. That is completely unique about Christianity. Now, one other thing, Islam, in a certain sense, does say that there is a reward in the afterlife. If you do certain things or whatever, there's a reward in the afterlife. But it is not the same as Christianity. It's not as detailed, and the conditions of that are not stated as clearly. And some would say that the reason Islam has that is strictly because it's influenced